Right, so we are going to get started now. Andrew and I are from Adama, and we're just letting you know that because they're providing the WebEx for us at no cost, which is great. And we're just calling out that we're a Splunk delivery partner, so reach out if you need a hand. But we are here to talk about Splunk. So let's press on with the agenda. So what we're going to talk about this afternoon is I'm going to talk a little bit about Splunk's new community platform and some of the changes and great new features that they've added to it. Andrew's then going to lead us talking through the new dashboarding framework, which is in beta, but he's got some cool demos and some slides to take you through. And then we're going to leave some time for some Q&A. There is a Q&A function built into WebEx. There is also the chat, which is open and you should be able to ask questions. Just make sure it's set to all participants, and then everyone can see it, and we'll try and address any questions that you've got. And then that'll be us. So we're probably not looking more than an hour, but we will see how we get on. Couple of house rules. This is more relevant when this is in person, but still relevant when we're remote. This is a technical forum. Absolutely anybody is welcome, and this is being recorded and will be on YouTube, so anyone obviously is welcome to use this video as they see fit. But it's always going to be focusing around technical discussions or the things that are about Splunk's community. We're an inclusive user group, and we use the Berlin Code of Conduct, which is referenced on the user group site. And we're fundamentally led by technology. This is not a sales environment. Andrew and I do not work in sales or marketing. We're both practitioners, we're both Splunk users, and we're here to share with you things that we think are interesting. That being said, if you'd like to hear talks on any particular topic, please let us know. And indeed, if you'd like to share anything, again, under those rules, please do reach out, as we'd love to have more speakers and be able to run these more frequently. The main reason we don't at the moment is just a lack of people coming forward to share, and there's only so much people like to hear my voice. So that's where we're at. Moving on. So the Splunk community is essentially it's the people on this call, it's the user groups, it's made up of a whole bunch of stuff, which I'm going to cover. And Splunk has, in the last 18 months, made a huge investment, both financially and in time, to really uplift that into a more modern platform. And I'm going to talk you through what that looks like and some of the things that I think are really cool and that I think you should get involved with. So there are 5 key programs that make up the community when it comes to Splunk. And I'm going to talk you through each one, but I'm going to focus, drill down into a few shortly. So Splunk Answers. So this is fundamentally a Q&A forum. So, in the traditional bulletin boards type style, you have people that ask questions and you have people that try to provide solutions or answers or delve more into their problems. It's an absolute cornerstone of the community and where a huge amount of us first started interacting with the Splunk community. We have the Splunk Trust. So the Splunk Trust is essentially their MVP program. These are community contributors. So these are people that contribute in user groups, contribute to Splunk Answers, and have been nominated and then recognized by Splunk as some of the most knowledgeable and contributing members of the community. I've had the privilege for the last 2 years to be nominated and accepted into the trust. I've been nominated this year as well, which is fantastic for me. And Adama, we have 3 members of the trust, and I'm going to talk a little bit about more of that later. There are the Splunk User Groups. You hopefully know what that is, as I've just described it to you. That is what we are in right now. There are, I think, something in the region of 40 or 50 of these globally, maybe more. And we essentially, we run events like this. Sometimes they're a bit more discussion-based, sometimes they're just presentations. But the idea being they are Splunk users who come together and just try and share. Now, there is the Splunk Ideas, which is all about getting your ideas as Splunk users, Splunk customers, Splunk partners, or Splunkers themselves. This is a way to actually suggest ideas and changes to the Splunk product portfolio, and then enable these to be reviewed, to be upvoted, and so on. And this is owned and directed by Splunk's product organization directly. So their product managers, their developers, they have weekly sessions to review these ideas and triage them to decide what they want to do with them. It's a really powerful program, and I'm going to go into a bit more detail shortly. And the newest of all of these is the discussion forums. So these are, again, similar to Splunk Answers, and much of this is on the same back-end platform, but this is now more for threads around discussion. So it's not the Q&A format, it's more in the whole, what do people think of X? And, you know, I've been reading about this and I wanted to share it. So, you know, it's a bit more like blogging and discussion and so on. And then the one thing that's not mentioned, which I do call out later on, is the Slack group. So Slack being a asynchronous chat tool, and Splunk has a big community using that, which I'll show off a little bit later. So, you know, just opening this out in that this is, you know, the address is community.splunk.com. This is the central home for all of those programs that you just saw. And we think that it's a really powerful move. And this is all based on a platform that's mentioned up in top left, K-Horos, something like that. I'm not very good at pronouncing it. But yeah, so this is you know, a professional community platform that Splunk's invested in that gives a whole range of capabilities to keep it current and enable the community to have a platform to communicate on and share content across all the different capabilities that we mentioned. One of those cool capabilities is, as I said, Splunk Answers. So this used to be on quite an old system that was really difficult to manage with loads of bugs and issues. And so all of those answers have been migrated. So we've got that longevity of knowledge. And then there's been a whole bunch of content categorizations based on the most popular topics, and the Splunk Trust was involved as well in making sure those tags were accurate and useful for the community moving forward. There's a whole bunch of stuff around ranks, badges, and karma. So, you know, you can go all the way from new member through to like contributor, builder, motivator, to legend and esteemed legend and hero of legends. So all this kind of gamification, which I think, you know, we hope just makes it a bit more fun to use the platform, and people, you know, get a form of community recognition when they contribute, which I think is important. The discussion forums that I mentioned, so, you know, this is taking the conversation out of just the Q&A format, which is, of course, more, you know, I have an issue or a challenge and I need an answer to it, and much more into the general discussion. There's, I think, 6 communities right now. They're up on screen, so, you know, security, DevOps and observability, IT ops, general tech talks, career resources, and obviously a random place too. This has been only very recently released. There's only a small amount of the stuff on here right now, but this is being added to and broadened out every single day, so encourage you to take a look. One of the final things that were added recently as well is in-platform private messaging. So, you know, the ability to actually have instant messaging, asynchronous communication. And so this is being tested out. You can even send small files. So if you're having a conversation with somebody on a discussion thread and want to send them the Splunk app that you just developed, you can do that, again, all within the platform without having to break off into other systems or services, which I think is really cool. And then what's next? So the Splunk User Group platform, i.e. the thing you use to sign up to this event, that's just been refreshed over the last 6 months and is soon to be fully integrated into the community platform, meaning that the badges will come across and all that kind of stuff. So they are soon to enable you to kind of like have a discussion off a user group event that you've had, or I'll be able to share some of the content via the IM feature that we talked about, rather than kind of them being slightly separate. So that's in the works, which is good to know. So just a few more things to say. So one, the Splunk Ideas process, which I did cover earlier on. As I mentioned, it's a way of getting customer-driven ideas directly into Splunk's product teams. And just to give you an idea of what it looks like, so these are, for example, the 3 top ideas at the moment. The top one, better audit logs, that someone suggested, that's under consideration, meaning that it is being actively triaged and scoped by the product team. Doesn't mean they've agreed, but it does mean that they are trying to work out what that would look like. source control. So that's been tagged as a future prospect. So it's been triaged and they're not committing to it right now, but they are now adding that to be considered as they start to plan their roadmap. And then finally, the third one down, so changing of the terms master and slave to something that's more inclusive, that's been committed to. So it's been considered and they've now committed that they are making that change, and that's now on someone's backlog to actually implement within the products. So a really powerful way of connecting you, the community, the customers, the partners directly to the people that build the software, and enabling us all to look at what's there, vote up things that we think are the most relevant, and so on. So super useful. As you can see, some of the stats on the side there. So 300 of them are under consideration. Almost 60 are planned, 24 in development. They've finished and shipped 17, and so on and so forth. So it's an actively an active area that's having a lot of attention and resources piled into it. So finally, I did just want to mention the Slack group. So this is essentially community organized. So this isn't hosted by Splunk. This is hosted directly by the community. As you can see, over 10,000 members, 1,500 weekly active members, and there's a whole bunch of topics and interesting stuff that gets discussed and gets done on there. So, highly recommend you register. The address is down there, or if you Google it, you'll find it really easily. And please do reach out. And in fact, we have our own discussion group, Edinburgh, if you look for that as a channel. So hopefully that's a bit of a fast fire overview of the community platform. They are super interested in feedback from anyone. So, please do have a look. And yeah, if you've got any questions, post them in the chat. If not, we will come back to them at the end. And I will now be handing over to Andrew for the more technical part of this afternoon, and that's talking about new dashboard beta. I'll just pass you presenter, Andrew.
Yep. So I'll just
there you go.
Swap share. Just move your face out the way because you popped up over it. Present.
Same happened for me. WebEx isn't very intuitive at that.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so yeah, let's begin with the new dashboards. So when Splunk started up, they provided dashboards using something called simple XML, and you probably used to using that, but the developers at Splunk decided at some point that simple XML was using very outdated technologies, such as jQuery and a bunch of framework libraries that are not that great to use anymore. So what they announced at last year's conf was a brand new dashboard framework that will eventually replace the classic way of building dashboards. So what is the new dashboard beta? So when you built dashboards in Classic, you were stuck to a grid-like way of structuring things. You would drag like a visualization to a part of the screen, and it would go into like a block. And sometimes when you're trying to build a dashboard, these blocks are sort of unintuitive. Like you don't have the sort of control over where your content goes. And the new dashboard beta will now provide a way to manipulate exactly where in your dashboard you want your certain elements to be. So say you want your chart on the far right or like middle right of the screen, depending on where it sort of sits with the rest of your content, you can now give it a specific coordinate, for example. You can now build your dashboard using a new visual workflow menu. So this is sort of a more condensed version of how classic dashboards were built, with all the options now being on the screen at all times, and I'll show that off in a little while. Yeah, and there's no more XML. When you were writing the XML, you had to put it in the specific order that you want the elements to appear. That's no longer required. You now have JSON based definitions in your source editor, and you can now add images, lines, basic shapes, and you can also add claw breath SVG maps. That's not really easy to say, but you can now put your own images and make visualizations out of that, and it's really interesting to use, I think, and I've got an example coming up. So where can you get the beta? You need a minimum of Splunk 3.3 or 8 onwards, and you download it from Splunk Base. It's not replaced dashboards quite yet, so it does live in its own app, and you just install that to your instance of Splunk and navigate to it. So this is Splunk's own example of what one of these dashboards can look like. So you've got this image in the middle, and all these metrics lined up around points around here. Splunk likes to say that the new dashboard beta is for prototyping and story-driven visualizations. So this particularly tells how your airport, for example, is operating at a glance, rather than just looking at your blocks of searches. Like you see the 53 minutes of security waiting time at gate G, and you know which gate that is just by looking at the actual dashboard. I really apologize for these really bad images. I took them last night on not my dashboards. Don't worry, my dashboards will look a bit better than this. But this just shows you that you can set a lot of elements at pixel position. So I've got this rectangle element at 510 coordinate x and 20y pixels on your screen, and you can set the width and height to be specific pixel dimensions as well. And I found out very late last night that you can rotate text. You can add text elements, and you can rotate it degrees, which is fun, but I'm not. And you can also layer your elements. So the bar chart on the left is actually behind the rectangle there, and the text is on top of the text. And if you want to change that order, you can change it by clicking this button here, and it'll just move the layers back and forth. Just move your face out the way because it's right in the image, Harry. So you now have this visual workflow editor. So you click your element, and configuration for that element pops up. So you can change the visualization type if you want, add your descriptions. I'll show this in better detail once I get to the actual demonstration of this. But you can add a data source for this, this bar chart, for example. There are some features that are not available through the editor yet. I'll come to that in a second. But the main one at the moment is inputs, like your submit buttons or your time pickers or your drop downs. They're not actually accessible yet through the visual workflow editor, but it should be in a upcoming release from what I can see about it. Next slide. And your dashboards are now represented in JSON format. So it looks like this. So DS test is actually a way to get dummy data into your dashboard. So if you want to do rapid prototyping rather than ingest data, write a search, and then bring it in like that, you can just create like a bunch of data based on like column names and values, and you can provide the field names for that, and it exists as data that you can use in your dashboards. And then your visualization parts will also be stored in JSON with options and encoding, sorry, encoding types and things like that. And this is probably one of the cooler bits, which is the SVG maps. Now you can still use your pre-existing geolocation maps that you're used to, but now you can import your own CVG image as long as it's got a path with your D attributes. So that's just like the sort of diameter, I think, that the your element is, and as long as it has an ID that your data matches to, and I'll explain that a bit in a second. But this is an example of Splunk's making, where you have a campus and you want to know what the network connections are around your entire campus. So it looks like around here it's a bit bad, whereas around here is good. And just looking at this at a glance, it's that sort of visual storytelling that Splunk wants to enable their developers to sort of explore. Now it is a beta, so not every feature is available at the moment. Like I said, inputs are only creatable within the source editor, so actually going into the JSON itself and writing it in. And drill down support is quite limited at the moment. From what I can tell, just from using it myself, it can either link to an external item URL or to an element within the within your Splunk instance itself. Token support, for example, when drill downs isn't there yet, so you can't do I don't think you can do your drill down from your table into like your specific search results for that. You have to open that in your search and then click through. It's I believe it's coming, but I don't know when exactly. The JSON schema can be a little bit confusing to work with, because when you create an element, it gets a random ID generated for it, and trying to remember what IDs match to what can be a bit convoluted. but I don't see, outside of yourself sort of giving it its own IDs, how you would get around that. And custom JavaScript and CSS elements are not present in the new workflow or editor yet. You're not able to write inline code like you might be able to with the simple XML, nor can you import JavaScript directly through the editor, but you can create React.js components for visualizations. I've no experience with that. I don't know how easy that is, but you can probably pull off a lot of interesting visualizations of that. If you want to see what the comparisons are with the beta and the classic version of dashboards, there's a good table of information at the dashboard beta's sort of introduction page. And I'll show these off in a little bit, but there are some really good public examples of dashboards out and about. So when COVID-19 hit, Splunk for Good, which is Splunk's charitable arm, created a number of new dashboards to sort of visualize the data that they were able to get from public bodies. This one is a bit insane. This person watched The Expanse and decided, I want to recreate console output from that. It's like LCARS, if you know Star Trek, but a bit hyper. I would have downloaded it, but it's got 75 concurrent real-time searches, but there's a little video that I can show you in a second. McLaren, because they partnered with Splunk for the F1, they used the dashboards for their metrics now. And then there's a Ethereum chain dashboard that shows like the how the blockchain is running. And I think it's time to actually show you what it's like. So when you download the app and log into the page, you're welcomed with this sort of intro page, and you can click create a new dashboard or read documentation. That will take you to the beta website's documentation, or you can click dashboards to see the pre-existing ones that you can that you've already made. Your dashboards will show up in dashboards. I think you have to go into the app and click dashboards through here. So I've just made a really basic dashboard. It's just got a bit of text, but I'll show you how you can add elements. So let's just start off with like a bar chart. So bar chart, you can add your SPL in this new data source bit. So index equals internal. In fact, let's just by, if I can spell source type. In fact, don't need pre-stats. Last 24 hours. Run and save. And you get your dashboard like that. And from there, you can move it about where you want. You can make it bigger, and then you've got a number of options here that you would normally expect when you're creating your visualizations. Don't really know what I'm clicking, but it just shows you that you have a lot of tools in this configurations menu. And if you want to look at the actual source code for this, the search I just created exists here as a data source, and then under visualizations, you've got a entry for the bar chart, and it's taking the primary data source from the search here. You also have you've also got a bit in layout to define what the structure actually is. So you can write your dashboard through JSON, but it's a bit sort of unintuitive just to do it all through this at the moment. I would recommend using the options here until you know what you're really doing, which at the moment I don't. You can add elements like this line, and this line actually follows things about. So it's all about this sort of storytelling. Skipping ahead, and you can hit this view button to actually see what the dashboard will look like. So if I click, WebEx is in the way of my browser bar for some reason. So if I click here, we can see what professionals have actually produced. So this is one of the COVID dashboards that Splunk has created, and you've got this really nice map here that they've used. It's just a basic app, I think, using GeoJSON, I think, in this case, and you can have a lot of cool different visualizations like this burrow map. So this is an actual SVG that has IDs for each of the burrows. So the ID for the Bronx, for example. So you've got elements around here with an ID of the Bronx. Is same with this map, and this just charts the number of cases depending on the borough that you're in. Right. WebEx is not great because it's all over the place. So this is what I've sort of spent some time building myself. So I scraped a lot of data off of my Google Play Music and YouTube Music and converted the data into something that I could search in Splunk. And what I've done is I've taken two searches here and essentially made dashboard elements by chaining them together. So I've got this big main search just giving me all the data out, and then I chain them together by referencing them in this chain code. So instead of running a lot of searches, you can just do your what used to be base search in the classic dashboard. And to add this input, if I can remember where it is. Yeah. So you can add inputs manually by just creating a new object, giving it a type, and a list, but this can be dynamically generated through a search as well. I just did this because it was the easiest way for me to do this. Back. And just click that. So yeah, so I can do it. You can actually make it full screen. So if you have like a sock or something along those lines, you can have it quite big. And you can see that there's this grid here, and I've got elements off the grid. So when you actually view, you don't see those elements. You can expand that grid to be as big as you want or as small as you want. And you can add images. So like this is an image that I imported, and I've actually got URLs for each of the services behind the link. So I can just click that and go to like YouTube Music, for example. And finally, I'll show you this because I spent quite an awful lot of yesterday trying to get this to work. So this is a SVG of Scotland based on the council boroughs, and I've got a population data or the population estimates per council from scot.gov. And what this essentially is saying is the bluer the area, the more dense or the more population there is in that council area. And I'll show you quickly how you set that up. So you upload your CSV. I can never say that right. You provide a search that has at least one column for the IDs that belong in the SVG, and then you provide what the value is that it's actually using. So normally it should be the first column and the second column, and you define it like that. And you can either set it as a gradient, or you can do a range value where you provide a range of numbers and a range of values rather, and you provide a color that applies to that. So just like from 1,000 to 2,000, you can set it that color. And yeah, it's only massive because I do have 13 pie charts. There are 33 councils, and I realized that far too late into the night, so I decided to stop there. I wanted to put lines to all of these different boxes, but it would just look really messy. So having something like just having the map by itself would probably be good enough for maybe like visual storytelling. But if you have too many elements or it's a bit unfocused, like this side is probably not that great to use. And I'll quickly show you like the extreme sort of cases you can have. Just quickly load Reddit. This is a Splunk dashboard that someone has built, and it's nuts. So this is
quite the dashboard.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is actually in the app base right now. I only discovered that just before the doing this presentation. but he's imported a bunch of images, text elements. I think he might have written. I'm assuming it's a he. Sorry. The developer, I think, might have wrote like custom components, but there's a GitHub repository of the apps that you can have a look at as well if you visit the Reddit link. But yeah, there are a number of conf talks regarding this. 2019 was the year that it was first announced, and there was a number of different talks here. I don't actually remember if I actually attended any of these, but all the slides and the video content for Conf 19 at least are available. And for Conf 2020, I've only seen 2 sessions so far, but it's early days with the sessions catalog, so there probably will be a lot more than that. So I'm just going to open it up for questions. I do see we've got stuff in chat, but oh, it's just you, Harry.
There is a question in the Q&A panel, which I don't know if you can see when you're sharing. Can older dashboards created in simple XML be converted to the new format, or do older dashboards need to be created from scratch?
I believe there is a way to convert dashboards. I've not done it myself. However, there is oh, my Google. There is a way to do grid-based layouts. I've not particularly looked at it, but dashboard. Just create it. And that didn't work properly. What's happened? Leave that.
That's what you get for doing a live demo.
Yeah. Create new dashboard. Grid. Dash. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so if you can create just a grid-based one like this. And there should be an option to convert your classic dashboards to new dashboards, but if you do have custom elements or something that isn't supported, I don't know what the actual conversion will do, because yeah, I mean, it's still a beta. So I hope that sort of answers your question there. Is there anything else? I've got the Q&A section open, so I can see that.
Yeah, and if someone would like to ask the question verbally, just send me a message and I can unmute you. It's locked down for obvious reasons when running a public drop-in. Don't want to get Zoom bombed on WebEx. Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat. So that's us really. But thank you, Andrew, for that. That was really interesting. I'm not a big dashboarder, haven't got an eye for it, but it's good to see that Splunk's simplifying, the approach. And obviously, from what you showed, you can make much more visually interesting dashboards with a lot less custom code. So that's really cool.
Yeah, there are a good number of demonstrations in the what is it? The Picasso Picasso conf presentation. Although they're just images, but you can get. I think I saw like a farm crop yielding one, for example, and a whole bunch of other sort of much more convincing dashboards than the one that I've ripped up over the last week or so.
Good to know. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we are going to call it a day. So just under the hour that I said we would be, so that's not too bad. As I mentioned at the beginning, please do reach out to us if you've got a specific topic you'd like to see covered, or indeed a topic you would like to share yourself. Both Andrew and I, as leaders of this user group, were always interested in getting more people talking, more people's insight. As you've seen, it's technically led, but if it's about community or anything that we can relate to the Splunk technology stack, we're more than happy to to review it and try and get you on. We'll hopefully set another one of these up within the next couple of months. If there's more demand than that and you want to see more things, we will try and get it up sooner. So, Andrew, thank you very much for organising this. Really appreciate it, and appreciate this is the first one you've organised since joining as a leader. Thank you, and thank you for everyone that's given us some time. And we will see you next time. Thanks all.
Bye for now.